What's up, Trekkies? Okay, so I saw something on Tumblr. We're going to make sure I know what I'm talking about here for momentarily. Why did I not have this phone restarted? Phone got an update, restarted, I lost all the windows. Where are you? Where are you? You're not too far back. Tom Brady. No, back than I thought. Oh no. So apparently there's a point of contention. Today, since I got my pad and I'm sitting in this typical spot, we're not talking about Star Trek Online. Aaron and I are only level 53. So we don't really know, we've done like the first sets of missions and whatnot. And we've done Kobali Prime, but we don't know too terribly much more of the storyline. Things on Tumblr, I will link to this below, if you want to read the whole thing. Yeah, it says, allows the Enterprise to crash twice, crashes both times. Or allowed to drive the Enterprise twice, crashes both times. Yeah, so apparently, yeah, the idea is in generations. If the saucer section had gone to full impulse immediately, it would have made it away from the explosion in time of the warp core breach. So it wouldn't have crashed down to Viridian 6. 4. Whatever planet was on, I'm bad. The generalized thing is that it was an emergency saucer separation, which is that in and of itself. So today we're going to talk about the propulsion system that's not the warp drive, because we've already talked about that. There's not too terribly much to understand. Like I said, they're fusion rockets, nonetheless. So, as I've seen on the cutaway and read in the encyclopedia, you basically have, you know, the impulse engines on the back of the Enterprise, the red thing that looks like that. Wonderful. Checking to see if the pen worked. It's that red boom on the back. Pretty much any ship that has a red on the back, that's their impulse engine. You don't see them on the saucer section, but they're on the sides. If you have, some nacelles. What do you mean? You have the neck that comes up, and then the saucer section, the back. The impulse engines are right. The impulse engines are right there. Shut up. So, they don't need to be that big. They're not intended to, you know, do much of anything. They use hydrogen. They're fusion. They use deuterium, hydrogen. And what they look like on the inside is, there's the little screen that diffuses everything, and they've got a reactor there, and they're attached together. Okay? That's what they look like, pretty much. It's the hydrogen pods, and, you know, there's like the storage containers, the mixing containers, and then it just diffuses it over a certain area. Fusion rocket, for Christ's sake, you know? Now, unlike the warp core, which these are not powered by, that's why the saucer section can move when it's not attached, is because it has two fusion propulsion engines. Why does it have two? Because it's really wide. You know? It's like, you know, one in the center and you're going to put undue, because you have an inertial dampening field, but you're still putting stress. You're pushing one part of the ship more than the others, and it can fracture a little bit, whereas if you kind of push, it's sort of like when you're trying to push a big wide box, you can push in the center, or you can put your arms out, or have two people push on the ends. What's easier? That's what the idea of having the two in there is. That's how and it's simple fusion. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4 + R. I made that joke on Facebook and not many people got it. The idea is that you have one hydrogen plus one hydrogen, which has one proton in the nucleus, plus one hydrogen plus one hydrogen equals 4 in the nucleus. But helium actually has 2. It has 2 protons, 2 neutrons. 2 protons, 2 neutrons, 2 electrons. But it has 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4. And then, but it's not quite, and then there's a +R. That +R is what fusion is all about. That's what powers the sun. That's what powers these things. That's what we're trying to do, is because technically has a waste of what we put in balloons. That's the waste! You know? And where do you restock your, people are like, well, how does it keep restocking if they're constantly at impulse all the time? Restock it, you gather it from space. It's literally everywhere. It's the most abundant thing in the galaxy. It's just floating, or in the universe. It's just floating around, doing its own thing. It's just ionized particles, At that level of technology, it's pretty easy to make. You know, even if you only have a wandering proton floating around, you can pretty much grab an electron from somewhere. Oh, look, you made hydrogen. You know, they probably know how to make hydrogen. Good lord. But that's what the Bussard collectors are on the front of the nacelles. Go look at an Enterprise D nacelle. And you've got this, that part's the blue, and this is really terrible. It's a nacelle, really terrible. Looks like a lazy slug. But you know, the blue thing's on the side. But then you have this red part in the front. That's the Bussard collectors. They've used them before. They gather things. They're scoops. They gather hydrogen. They can gather other gases too, but they have containment tanks in them. And they suck in, you know, and while they're flying around, the hydrogen, they pull in hydrogen and they put it in the tanks, and that hydrogen can be moved to the regular deuterium and can be made into deuterium, because that's pretty easy to do, and put into the deuterium tank so they can use the zzz with the warp core. They have to restock on antimatter, but that's not a problem for like Enterprise. It was a problem for Voyager, but they sort of spaced over that. I mean, they probably could create antimatter pretty effectively. They just needed to sit around for a little while and do it. Whatever. Plus, it's probably lying around. Waftropic. So that's what the Bussard collectors do. They gather ambient hydrogen and they funnel it to various places in the ship. That's necessary. I mean, they've got engineering crews for reasons, and you know, not everyone has the glamorous jobs of being in main engineering. Some of them are really trucking pods of hydrogen from the Bussard collectors down to the deuterium tank. It's, you know, not everyone has a glamorous job on the Enterprise. Anyways, so the idea with that is, I am so off topic, I'm so caffeinated right now. The idea is that they're rockets. They require inertia. They have to build up. The warp core goes zoom and creates like space, and then you can move space around it. We've already talked about this. So the ship doesn't have to move, you're not moving the mass. That's easy. That's easy. It takes a lot of power, but it's easy. Whereas a fusion engine, rocket, it's gotta move the ship. The ship has mass. Like I said, inertial dampeners do that sort of thing, but a lot of people think the inertial dampeners stop the ship from like, it's just easy to move the ship. It does. There's an inertial dampening field around the ship, but really what an inertial dampener is supposed to do is make sure that when they go to full impulse, the crew is not a stain on the back wall. That's what the inertial dampeners are mainly for. It's to make everything not go when they move the ship slightly. Like the thrusters do the ship, yeah. The inertial dampeners are internal. That's why it's always like a big deal when the inertial dampeners are off, and that's when people get thrown around. But it's cinematics. In order to do that, while they can right away, think about it. We've got gravity to deal with, but we've got a tinier little shuttle. Now, we're trying to accelerate a shuttle to like 11 kilometers per hour, 11 kilometers per second. Some tiny little amount to get escape velocity. Now, once we're in space, it's pretty easy. Thing doesn't really weigh that much, still got a lot of mass, but it's slow to react still, because you have to, you know, turn, and then you have to blow on the other side and as it slows down. So think about that. You've got two fusion engines, which do provide a lot of power, but the saucer section's huge. And it was emergency saucer separation. And it's like, what is going on? So you've got a bunch of people that are still trying to get settled. They're trying to make sure that they've got everything secure. And they're just like, punch it. And she sits down. Like, she seriously ran over to the thing and was like, while she is trained in piloting piloting. She had to for officer training. If you remember that episode. It's not necessarily her thing. She had to familiarize herself with the controls. While there was probably a delay, still, to think that she did not go, I haven't watched the movie in a while, I'm a bad person, but even at full impulse, it takes a while to accelerate up a little bit. They're small, because they're only meant to be the thing. The main impulse engine is like, it has like 4 of these things, you know, in a nice little like array like that. People want to rip into Deanna because she crashed the ship. Well, it's an emergency situation, considering that, you know, nobody died on the way down. means, one, Data was piloting pretty well. She piloted pretty well on her way down, for Christ's sake, because if she was piloting, yeah, you gotta basically get a frisbee to land softly. That's what that is. And the fact that, she got everyone off the ship. No one died. Yeah, the Enterprise was a loss, but, a starship's a starship. In terms of, real stuff, I'd rather wreck my car than lose Aaron or my life. A car can be replaced. So, you want to rip into Deanna about crashing the Enterprise? Okay, second of all, in Nemesis, when she was piloting the thing, that was Picard's doing. He wanted her to do that. Just because she was sitting at the controls, Tom Paris could have been sitting at the controls. Data could be sitting there. Anybody could have been sitting there, but it was Picard's choice to do it. Just because Deanna happened to be sitting there doesn't necessarily mean it was her fault. Joke, I get it, but gotta give her a little credit, at least on the Nemesis thing. And for Generations, it was just a bad situation. I don't know. I will catch you guys next week. I didn't get much drawing in as I thought I was going to, but at least I described the Bussard collectors, a fusion engine, and what the things are on the other side. If you have any questions about Star Trek tech that you'd like me to talk about, that would work. I can talk about a lot of things. I've already talked about how the phaser arrays work in and of themselves, and they'll link over there. So, I talk about torpedoes, talk about the deflector dish. I don't know. Comment below, give me your choices. What do you want? I mean, I can talk about a lot of things. There's a whole host of stuff to do. Bye!